All right. We are excited to talk about chapters 10, 11, and 12 in What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I always start by saying I love the last thing I read. They're all good.
Yeah.
It's really building on itself.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so fascinating how, as you think positively, you're building up the neurons in your left side of your brain, which is so fascinating. And it really kind of debunks the whole thought that if that this is like, that it'll fade, that it's just like a hype you up type of thing. And I thought that was really fascinating because I didn't realize that the left part of your brain is the ability to seek alternative solutions to problems, deal with challenges, maintain even balance. It's so cool.
I know. It was so interesting that he was saying, like, that's why people that are so negative just, like, keep going down that road. And I was like, you have, I'm sure, people in your circle somewhere where you just see that and you're, like, so sad for them, but, like, they can't even hear the positive. They can't even hear the good because, like, he was explaining that. So that was crazy to read.
Yeah. And it's so great too, because as you think positively, you are becoming more open then to possibilities and finding solutions and creating success. Like that's just like mind blowing to me, because then you're like, oh, so it's not like the fact that I'm saying it that is making this happen. It is literally, well, it does change the energy. I believe that 100%, but it literally is putting something in, like building your brain. So that's so cool. Hold on one second. Keep talking. If there's something else that stood out to you, I just need to mute myself for 1 second.
Okay. Lisa, did you have anything that you wanted to? I feel like I always talk a lot on these.
I know, me too. I was like, I'm not going to talk this time. I was at Bible study. Well, I was supposed to go to Bible study this morning, but I just say the same thing to myself every week. I'm like, stop talking and just listen, and you'll learn more if you just listen.
Well, I don't know. You've blessed me by what you
Oh,
shared.
thank you.
And I think that there is, like, when we talk out loud, we process it differently too.
Yes.
And it just kind of solidifies.
Yeah, totally. And I'm thankful for other people's input. That's why I basically tell myself that, is because I just want to learn from other people. I want to hear what they have to say, because mine could be totally different.
Yeah.
But I have to go back. I had a challenge with Pete from now until September through December to finish a book a month. And I just finished this one. So now I have to go back. I was like, I shouldn't do that with books that I have to like my Bible study book or whatever. I shouldn't read ahead, because then I forget what I learned. So I decided that this month is going to be like just a fiction book or something, because I'm like, I can't. This is too much for my brain.
Yeah.
I can't do another one. Oh, what stuck out to me? Are we just on chapter 10?
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting where he was talking about how your right side of your brain is like, or I'm sorry, the left side, it's optimistic, but it's also practical and realistic. So it's not just like, we can do it because we believe, and it's easy to go that route, but then you're like, what on earth? This didn't work. I said I was doing all this good stuff, but you see like the benefit of constantly, like repetitively, consistently speaking truth and speaking positively, how that builds on itself, because you do have to like build that muscle, so to speak. And it's not a 1 week
Well, it took that long. You kind of equate it to anything in life. It took you that long to get there.
Right.
How
right.
much longer is it going to take? And sometimes I have grace for myself in that. In like when he was talking, again, I don't know where it is. He talks about how it's not one liner here and there.
Mhm.
It's like talking to yourself all the time about it. And I liked his analogy of the mental apartment
Mhm.
and how if you go in there and you take everything out, like it's great, you feel great and it's wonderful, but then you start looking around and you're like, this is really empty. What
Mhm.
am I going to do about this? And then you just start bringing in your own crap again because you don't have anything to fill it with. And it's like, oh, what do I need to be filling it with other than just the garbage thoughts that I often think?
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's fascinating that we're comfortable with the thoughts that we've lived with the most.
Hmm.
And so it doesn't matter whether they're good or bad. It's security in a weird way for us, like.
because we
And
know that emotion and we know what to expect from that emotion. Like I
think
used to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go
I
ahead.
was
I'm
gonna
done.
say, I think we talk a lot about like not liking change, even in just like in anything. And I think this just is such like that unconscious, like not wanting to change these habits that we've had since we were probably a child in the way
Mhm.
that we're thinking. And then how much harder it is to change that type of thing. You know, I don't know. I feel like going to eat something healthy versus unhealthy is easy compared to changing the way that we think about things.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think that it was interesting because I listened to that video, Rachel Callback, that you shared from Emily Gibson, and I just felt like it went right along with that. And I feel like I'm going to screw up how she said it. Do you remember the 3 ways that I remember the main words, but if you can remember the way that she like described it, if you want to share it, but you're muted. It's like basically our brain protects us from discomfort.
It's,
And
very-
then
it's to keep us safe. It's
Yeah.
to keep comfortable and secure, right? Is
Yeah.
that 3 things?
wasn't pleasure one?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, I was just going to say that she alludes to like the whole caveman mentality. So like back when we had to like defend ourselves, like in a cave, if there was a wolf or there was a lion or there was a bear coming in, and you literally had for self-preservation, yes, to keep you comfortable and for your pleasure. And those were the things that people cared about then, because like there was no, social media or any comparison. It was like, and she was just trying to say, we do that so often. And I know anytime I've ever ran, like it's like your mind is telling you stop, because you can't go any further. But then you're like, I can do this. I can go further. And I just feel like that's a really good example for me in any instance when I want to talk myself out of anything, whether it's parenting or just like, I don't know, eating healthy or reaching out to somebody or, following up with somebody, anything. Doesn't have to be just Plexus related. I feel like once I rewire my mind into thinking like there's nothing that's going to happen to me. Nobody is going to come after me if I do that. And actually the opposite happens, where you do gain control over that emotion.
Yeah. She says you need to make an affirmation that says, I'm safe. I am the lion and I'm going to get out of my cave. And I love that because, you think like, I can't do that. Like it's like the lion, it's going to attack me. And you're like, no, I mean, it's what your brain thinks. It's what's wired to do is protect you, self-preservation, And so she's even like says like, thank your brain. Thank you, but I'm safe, like, because there is a time where that is exactly what you need to do. Like, you don't want to run out in the street when a car is coming. I mean, that's obviously your brain tells you that, boom, and that's such a great thing to have. But calling somebody up on the phone or sending a message to somebody who's super successful and would do better than you would in this business is just, it brings up the same feeling, you know, inside, but that is not going to kill you. So you are the lion. Get out of your cave. Yeah, I love that. I thought that was so good. Yeah, in chapter 11, and if anything comes back and we, you know, you want to go back to chapter 10, but I want to keep trucking along here. When he talks about external temporary motivation, which is coming from the outside, and obviously we've all experienced that, you know, whether we go to a conference or we listen to a YouTube or whatever, but it's external. And I thought it was fascinating how he explained why that never sticks. Like, why doesn't that stick? Why doesn't that work? Because
He said that it literally like can't be stored in our brain.
yes.
And I thought that was super interesting. And like later towards the end, he's like, it has to be your own brain, like reprogramming itself. Because like
You're the
you can
coach.
hear things and get him. Yeah, he said, what did he say? Imagine being able to rely on yourself to always energize your spirit, focus your attention, and keep you in tune, on top, in touch, and going for it. Can you imagine never again needing someone else to prod or push you into activating your own best efforts? And like he was, you know, basically that analogy of the coach. It's like when he's gone, you're like, you
Right.
know, now what?
Yeah.
But like you're your own coach, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was thinking about it too, just like in relation to like our need for community. And like I'm thankful that I don't have to do that completely alone. Like I do for myself and in myself, but like doing it with you guys, and you know, so it's kind of like a weird, I don't know, I don't even have the words to formulate that, but I was just kind of thinking about like both sides of that.
I think a lot about people who have like addictions, and you know, you always hear somebody say like, oh well, they can't change until they're ready to, or until they're the ones that are doing it, and this just like solidified that in my mind, that like people aren't going to be ready until like their mind is made up that they're ready for the change, and that they're telling themselves like, oh, I can do this, or I can stop smoking, or I can lose the weight, or whatever it is on their plate that they want. And I loved that last paragraph where he talked about the human brain has no neural networks that are designed to store motivation. And it's just like, I don't know, being a former coach, it's like, well, you know, like, it made me think a lot about how I coached, and really their motivation had to come from them. And I don't know, it's just so interesting to think about all the different facets that plays a role in, even with like our kids too.
He said that like I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember where it was and I just have notes jotted down, but he said like, if you really want to invest in people or influence people, like you have to help them first with their self-talk and like get them to believe in themselves, because like we can say it all day long, but they're coming with their own like crappy old furniture apartment mentally, you know. And I was like, so true. And it's hard. I feel like we can speak that like those things over people. It took me a long time. Janice was actually really one that like started speaking things in, and I was like, she's like weird, you know what I mean? Like okay, that's really nice, but and like it took a while for me to like allow myself to just be like, yeah, actually Jesus says that about me, and it's okay to say that, you know. But anyway, I was like, that's such a good, like, help them see themselves in a different way. Like that's really good to have like in the front of my mind when first talking to people, dealing with people.
I love how he says a subconscious mind that has erased the old negatives and replaced them with new positives is the most fertile ground for growth and achievement we will ever find. That's really encouraging, because I feel like that's exactly what we're all doing right now, which means growth is happening like right now. It's not like going to happen. It is going to happen, but it's actually happening right now too, which is super, super wild. And I don't think sometimes you feel it, but most often you see it in hindsight. And so that's really, I don't know, that just makes me excited. Yeah, have to be good coaches. And then in chapter 12, when he talks about taking responsibility for yourself, that's key. I mean, personal responsibility is at the root of everything we think, do, conceive, fail at, or achieve in our lives. So, there's this whole like, oh, whatever. Well, if you did it, yeah, you did it. Good job. Why is it hard to, it's both hard to acknowledge something when we fail. It's also hard to acknowledge when we actually succeed at it too. Like, why is that? Have you ever thought about that? Like, why can't we just take responsibility for both, I don't have an answer for that. I was just curious if you guys ever thought about that.
It's also easier to point it out in other people than it is to ourselves, because like you said, we think of it as prideful, or we think of it as,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like we shouldn't do that, but you're right. You did that. Like, and you want other people to see it in themselves. So,
right.
Why not ourselves? Why not start with ourselves?
And you want other people to see that it's possible too. Yeah. Like if you never say like, I lost 50 pounds. Well, I'm not going to really tell anybody that. Well, why not? There might be somebody wondering, is it really possible to lose 50 pounds? You know what I mean? Like, is it seriously possible to hit Ruby in this business? Like, is it really possible, or is that just like a myth somewhere, And so you're like, no, it's actually possible. And I'm going to tell you that this is what, that I did that, And so that is cool. It creates possibilities, and there you go. There's your left brain working full time. And yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really fascinating, because it is also very hard to own up to our failures and our mistakes and say like, take responsibility for them and be like, yeah, I didn't do that the right way, or I didn't even do it maybe. Like, so, yeah. I loved your question, Lisa, about like how your conversations with God have changed, or your conversations in general too, I would think.
Yeah. I just feel like everything we're doing a book in Bible study called Calm My Anxious Heart, and that talks a lot about contentment. Mm-hmm. And then I listened to the podcast of, the Rhythms and Renewal podcast, and it all is just coming around. And I feel like sometimes I want to compartmentalize it, but God doesn't let me. Like, I can't read this book and not throw it through the grid of scripture and what God says about me. And how is it, like, what is it that I'm telling God about myself when I'm not acting a certain way, or when I'm not speaking to myself a certain way. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm not resting in Him, and I don't know, I came to the conclusion this week. I was talking to Pete about something so silly. It was about starting a fire outside. And I was like, did you ever know that I was afraid of fire? He's like, I don't think you're afraid of fire. I think that you're afraid of making a wrong decision when building a fire. And I was like, yep. Like, even something as simple as like building a fire, I think I'm going to do it wrong. Like, that's why I haven't come up with an affirmation, because I think I'm going to do it wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay, God, like I can't do this wrong especially if I go to scriptures and say, this is who you made me to be. I might not be able to think of it myself, but I can think of it. I can read it in scripture, and I don't have to be afraid of that, right?
Yeah.
That's not wrong.
So,
yeah. So it's all kind of connecting for me. So
that's beautiful.
I hope that wasn't too much of an aha moment on there. That's just what I had thought about. So
no, it's wonderful. Hi. Oh, sorry. There's like a lot of slamming doors downstairs, so I'm just like, Mo keeps jumping up and running downstairs. Well, if anybody does, I don't know if there are any more thoughts here. If not, we can wrap up. We will cover 13, 14, 15 next week. So,
all right.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.